I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Village Board meeting Tuesday, April 8th. We'd all stand. We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Present.
Trustee DeVivo?
Present.
Trustee Kajanis?
Present.
Trustee Sabo? Trustee Suisse?
Present.
Trustee Yukich?
Present.
Mayor Daley?
Present. D, amendments to the agenda. Margaret is running late. She said she may have some amendment to the agenda, so I'll go back to her at a later point in the meeting.
Mayor, I have a agenda
Okay,
amendment.
are there any amendments to the agenda? Trustee Suisse, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to table the minutes from March 25th so they can be compared with a complete redlined version and current copy of the ordinance that the lawyer said he would submit to everyone on the board.
Okay, is there a second to the motion made by Trustee Suisse?
Second.
Okay, so we will amend the agenda to, you asked for a table of those, is that it, Trustee Suisse?
Table, right, till next time.
Just table them when they come up for a vote.
Okay, all right, so then it really isn't an agenda to amendment to the agenda, it's you're gonna ask for a table when we get there.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'd like to have the record show that Trustee Sabo just entered the room. Okay, are there any other amendments to the agenda? All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of February 11th, 2014 meeting?
So moved. I second.
First by, who is it?
Marcia.
Trustee DeVivo, second by Trustee Suisse. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of March 25th, 2014 meeting?
I would like to table that.
You're making a motion to table the minutes of March 25th, 2014. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Sabo. There is no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. What is that? That would be E2 is tabled till next meeting. Okay, this would be reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. Excuse me, allergies. I'm happy to announce that Homer Glen will soon have a full-service independent bakery. Artesa Bakery has purchased the former Something Sweet Cupcake Boutique at 14045 South Bell Road. The owner of the new bakery will offer handcrafted baked goods made from scratch with natural ingredients. Dietary needs will be accommodated with gluten-free, nut-free, low-sugar, low-fat customized cookies and cakes. Breakfast breads and pastries will round out the bakery products available at the new bakery. I look forward to announcing a ribbon-cutting date for the Artesa Bakery very soon. Under Government Finance Officers Association Award for the financial reporting. The Village of Homer Glen has received its 12th consecutive Certificate of Achievement in Financial Accounting. This is a tremendous accomplishment. The Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in the area of governmental accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents a significant accomplishment by government and its management. I'd like to thank Finance Director John Sawyers, Account Clerk Kathy Claret, and all other staff members for all their hard work in preparing this report. Under summary of the Northern Will County Water Agency meeting, excuse me. The Northern Will County Water Agency met at Lamont's Village Hall yesterday. I want to recap the action items approved by the Water Agency for those members of the public who could not attend the meeting. The Water Agency approved a resolution that reorganized the Board of Directors. Previously, I co-chaired the board with Bolingbrook's Mayor Clare. As of yesterday, I was made chairman of the board. The other members of the water agency still retain their existing positions. In addition, a resolution was approved amending the agency's bylaws to reflect the calendar fiscal year effective January 1st, 2015. The water agency was also approved a proposal from Sikich LLP for audited services. Finally, the water agency approved a resolution which formally requests that each of the water agency's member municipalities, Homer Glen, Bolingbrook, Lamont, Romeoville, and Woodridge, use their eminent domain authority to condemn the pipeline and acquire the system from American Lake Water. The village board will be voting on this request at its upcoming meeting. Once all the member municipalities approve an ordinance to authorize eminent domain, the water agency's attorneys will again make a filing. Under refuge contract with New Way. Tonight, the village board will consider a 2-year refuge contract with New Way Homewood Disposal. I fully approve of this contract since it allows for a 6% reduction in the current rates and additional discounts for Homer Glen senior citizens. New Way's representative, Tom Agama, is here this evening to answer any of the questions the village board may have. Under Lamont Township's Earth Day Family Celebration, on Saturday, April 26th, Lamont Township will present a seminar for HOAs and homeowners on the benefits of native plantings for retention ponds and common areas. This is in response to the growing concern for natural areas in subdivision and demand for applicable education for their maintenance. Alternative gardening ideas will also be presented. The seminar will be from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. at the Lamont Township Community Center, located at 16300 Alva Street in Lamont. I encourage interested individuals to attend. And that concludes the mayor's report. We'll start out with trustees. Trustee Costa?
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
How about Trustee Yukich?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to remind everyone, the weather's starting to get nice now. There's not a lot of school left, so there are a lot of kids out in the street. So if they could just pay attention to the speed and look out for the kids. That's my report, Mayor.
Thank you. How about Trustee Sabo?
Yes, I have a report. The first one, I'm reporting for the Environment Committee, and the first report is on the emerald ash borer. And there has been speculation that the emerald ash borer would be killed this winter because temperatures were so low. However, it is alive and well and active because even though the temperature dropped to -16, the temperature still needed to be colder than that to kill the insect. So it's still with us. Earth Day, Arbor Day, 2014. The sponsors so far are Savers Thrift Superstore in Orland Park, Nicor Gas Energy Efficiency Program, Krieger Corporation, which represents Once Upon a Child. The Environment Committee continues to seek more sponsors in order to bring more programs for the public to enjoy. There are service providers, Conal Farm, New Way, and Home Depot. Earth Day applications for participants and sponsors are on the website, and the event will take place on May 17th from 11 to 4 at the Conal Farm in Homer Glen. The theme involves conservation, preservation, arts and crafts, recycle, reuse, and ways to reduce energy. Arts and crafts and green market products will be for sale with a variety of vendors. The not-for-profit organizations are encouraged to join, and volunteers are needed and are in great demand for the day. So please call Homer Glen office at 708-301-0632 or the website at www.earthdayarborday.info. My second item has to do with the workshop opportunity. Pete Pointner, who has worked for Homer Glen in the past as a consultant, has 2 recent publications of interest to local officials, Connecting Plan Review Economic Development and Revitalizing Aggressively Ugly Commercial Corridors. I'm not implying that we have any here, nor is he, which was published in the spring newsletter of the Urban Design and Preservation Division of APA. He is offering training workshops for plan commissioners, staff, and municipal office officials that deal with development projects that can improve the quality of development in a community. The workshops are 1 to 2 hours, and each participant receives a copy of his book, Planning Connections, Human, Natural, and Man-Made. Workshop agendas are also worked out with the staff. The Homer Glen Comprehensive Plan driven by core values, is included as one of the 19 case studies in his book. The Environment Committee is recommending that Pete Pointer present a workshop tailored to the Homer Glen community with topics mentioned and also connecting to businesses in Homer Glen. My next topic is Chicago Wilderness, and Sue Stylen and Trustee Sabo attended the Chicago Wilderness Congress on April 3rd at the University of Illinois in Chicago. Leave No Child Inside was one of the categories to attend. Ideas for outdoor play that involves nature, natural products, and exploration were among the many ideas in this category. The Chicago Park District, other suburbs, forest preserves are installing nature, science, and discovery areas which have become very popular with children and adults and have reduced expenditures. The Environment Committee would like to support the Parks and Recreation Committee with ideas related to natural areas at Woodbine and also provide reference material involving children and adults relating to the Woodbine Master Plan. Excuse me, last topic. Homer Glen, ranked as a safe city. Homer Glen is listed as 21 of 50 cities over 5,000 in population. It is 21 out of 514. Other towns ranked in Will County were Shanahan as 16th, Manhattan as 28th, and Frankfurt as 41. I'm going to share from the Wisely study and say this quote. Quote, SafeWise noted that even though the town keeps, meaning Homer Glen, artificial lighting to a minimum, the city streets are safe after sundown. On the most recent FBI crime report, Homer Glen had no reported rapes, murders, or arson. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Sabo. Trustee K. Janis?
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I'd like to say is today's Chamber of Commerce luncheon was delightful. Job well done by the Chamber. Your presentation, the state of the village, enjoyed, spot on, and enthusiastically witnessing it. So that's my report.
Thank you, Trustee K. Janis. Trustee Suisse?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief reminder, the Homer Harvest Days meeting is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at the Township Office. If anybody would like to volunteer for the committee, come and check us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Suisse. Trustee DeVivo?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Does the treasurer have a report?
No report this evening, Mayor.
Okay. How about the clerk?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
How about the village attorney?
No report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
How about any task force chairpersons? How about any public safety officials? How about the village manager?
Mayor, just two items real quick. We don't normally talk about local businesses that have job opportunities, but the village has been receiving quite a few calls regarding the impending opening of the Meijer store. I just want to let the public know that if you would like to get information about the job opportunities there, they're going to be hiring over 250 people. You can go to http://jobs.meijer.com/new store and apply online. And later in the agenda, I'll be giving a budget presentation, a proposed budget presentation. And before I do that, I just want to thank John and Aaron in particular, and Kathy and several of the staff members who've been involved in the budget process. It does take a lot of people to put a budget together, and most notably with John's help. And so just want to offer those thanks to the staff members who helped. Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. As far as the Myers website, if it isn't up on our website, can we put it up there?
I think it is, but I'll double check, and if it isn't, we will.
Okay, I've had a number of people ask me about the jobs over there.
Yep.
Okay, then the next portion of this meeting would be public comment. Thanks, Mark. Okay, we have one speaker tonight, John Coy. You'd step up to the podium, name and address for the record.
John Coy, 12056 Venetian Way, Orland Park, Illinois. I have a couple of questions, and I don't know whether I'll get the answers tonight, but I was reading an article about this Hickory Creek watershed, and our involvement is going to cost the village approximately $8,000 to $10,000, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right or wrong, Cameron?
I can get back to you with the exact amount.
All right, you get back to me. That's $8,000 or $10,000. I don't think Hickory Creek runs through Homer Glen as much, as far, or has the amount of water that Long Run Creek has. And why are we spending $8,000, $10,000 on something that wouldn't benefit us as much as if we spent that money to beautify or try and take care of Long Run Creek, which runs from the eastern part of Homer Glen all the way out to the western edge of Homer Glen and then into Lamont. That, to me, could use the money. I think we're foolishly wasting this money, because what are you going to do? We just go to meetings with this? It's a study. We don't have to spend $8,000 or $10,000 on a study, as far as I know.
So you know, John, this was addressed at the last meeting. The same question came up about the benefits. It was discussed. And if you have any questions about the benefit of Homer Glen, I suggest you contact Mike Salamovich or the village manager, and they can give you the answers to that.
All right. That's probably about it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, then public comments over with. The next portion of this meeting is legislation and action items. Is there a motion to approve a proclamation declaring April 19, 2014 as a day of congenital diaphragmatic hernia awareness in the village of Homer Glen?
So moved.
First by, that was trustee Costa.
Second.
Second by trustee Yukich. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa? Aye. Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee Kajanis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Motion carries. This would be H2. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 14-001, a resolution appointing a delegate and an alternative delegate to the Hickory Creek Watershed Planning Group?
So moved.
First by trustee DeVivo,
Second.
second by trustee Costa. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee Kajanis? Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Motion carries. This would be H3. The village manager has a small adjustment to page 8 of the refuse agreement. Cam, why don't you explain the change before the motion's made?
Mayor, thank you. I think Attorney Stirk is passing out a page right now. So on page 8 of the draft, on the paragraph that starts with the number 8 and then goes to A, there is reference, because this was an old contract that was updated, there's reference to a base amount that increases every year by the CPI. We just, in the line that's highlighted in orange, we just need to include the base number, okay, as it currently is. And so that's what that does, just to clarify. Mayor, thank you. One other item, if I could, please. When I sent the finished products, the finished draft of the update, which I think the board knows that the mayor and staff have been working with Tom and his good people at Homewood. When I sent it to the village attorney to review, the village attorney appropriately let me know that Odelson and Stirk does do some work for Homewood Disposal. So whenever that kind of thing happens, we just would like to disclose it to everyone, okay? And I'll let you know. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay, this is H3. Is there a motion to approve an agreement for refuse recycling and yard waste collection between the Village of Homer Glen and New Way Homewood Disposal Services, Inc. from July 1st, 2014 to June 30th, 2016, and to direct the mayor to sign said agreement?
I so move.
First by trustee Sabo,
Second.
second by trustee Yukich. Is there any discussion?
I would like to say something.
Sure, go right ahead.
I would like to thank New Way for reducing the cost. We really appreciate that. And Earth Day, Arbor Day is coming up, and they will be a service provider, service provider, and they will be bringing the facilities that are needed for washing and restrooms. So, well needed, and appreciate that.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Kate Janice.
Aye.
Trustee Sabo.
Aye.
Trustee Suisse.
Aye.
Trustee Yukich.
Aye.
Trustee Costa.
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo.
Aye.
Motion carries. This would be H4. Is there a motion authorizing the approval of ordinance number 14-020, an ordinance authorizing the conveyance of certain property to Stanley and Margaret Remias? Did I say that right? I got it right this time. How about that?
So moved.
First by trustee Costa,
Second.
second by trustee Yukich. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Sabo.
Aye.
Trustee Suisse.
Aye.
Trustee Yukich.
Aye.
Trustee Costa.
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo.
Aye.
Trustee Kate Janice.
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations. This item is for discussion purposes only. This is a workshop item tonight. The public hearing for the proposed budget will occur at the village board meeting on Tuesday, April 22nd, 2014. At that same meeting, as has been past practice, the board will consider the proposed budget for approval. Tonight, Village Manager Davis will be giving a PowerPoint presentation to the village board, informing them of the proposed budget for fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2014, and ending May 30th, 2015. Both Manager Davis and Finance Director Sawyers will be available to answer questions. Manager Davis, please go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're happy to answer questions tonight, and if for some reason we need to dig a little deeper into our notes and we're not able to answer the question tonight, we will certainly get back to the board. As been our past practice, John and I would be happy to sit down with any trustees who would like to sit with us and go through the budget on a line-by-line basis, or if you have some general questions. So what I ask you to do, John, as everybody knows, is not with us here in the office every single day, so his schedule is a little bit more challenging than mine. So if you do want to sit down with us, if you could just contact John directly, and then he'll work it into his schedule and let me know, and we'll make ourselves available to you, okay? All right, so for public notification purposes, a copy of the proposed budget has been at the library. It was delivered to the library so that the public is aware of it. Copies have been given to all of our colleagues at the newspapers, and we have a copy up at the front desk, and I believe Elena's trying to upload it onto the website. I think there may have been a little trouble with that, but she's working on that, okay, for public informational purposes. Okay, I'll try to go through this as quickly as I can. For the public's benefit, the mayor and the board have had the budget for a few days, so they've been able to look through it, but I have some highlights to present. So the proposed budget themes are no new taxes, capital investment in multiple new parks and trails. There's capital investments in stormwater improvements, similar to last year. Some capital investments and intersection improvements, 2 specifically. We'll talk about those later. Very fiscally conservative management, and one main theme is just taking action now and planning for the future. So in a budget summary, the general fund is balanced at $7.9 million. The overall budgeted revenues across all 11 funds are $14,547,821, and the overall budgeted expenses are $21,580,910. These are the traditional 10 funds that the village operates with. A couple of those funds up there were added last year, and you see the corresponding numbers that we use for budgetary purposes. There's one new fund that we're adding this year, and that's listed here as number 11, the CIP Emerald Ash Borer EAB Tree Replacement Fund, and its number will be 71. This is a summary of all the revenue and expenses across all 11 funds, and again, it matches the numbers at the bottom that I just mentioned. You'll see that on the revenue side, you go from the highest fund is the general fund, and the lowest being the tollway fund, which has $100 budgeted, I think, for interest. On the expense side, again at the top, the general fund is the largest at $7.9 million, and then our land acquisition fund on the expense side just has $5,000. This budget doesn't call for any land acquisition. This is a good pie chart, I think, for people to see in terms of revenue across all 11 funds. Obviously, the red that you see up on the screen is the general fund. It's the largest at 55%. And then there are other funds, debt service, MFT, in the park. And then all of the remaining 7 funds make up that 7% up there on the top part of the pie chart. This is an expenditure pie chart that shows where the money is being proposed to go. Again, the largest is the general fund, that's at 37%. Then there are 6 other funds where a majority of the expenses have been budgeted, and then 5 funds that make up a small 6%. First, for the general fund, these are the more specific summary of the revenues. Obviously, at the top is our 1% sales tax at $3 million. And then state income tax, which has been growing these past few years at $2.2 million. There is a new item just to highlight, number 10. Most of those other categories have been pretty consistent over the years. Item 10, of course, is money from our new gaming taxes, and is budgeted at $37,000 for a total across all 11 of those items at $7.9 million. This gives you a little pie chart feeling for the revenue stream. The state income tax is on the bottom. It actually looks larger on the pie chart than sales tax, but it is not. It gives you an idea, though, of how important the sales tax and the state income tax are to our general operating fund. A minute ago, I mentioned about state income tax receipts and how they've been growing over the past couple years. The state income tax receipts have become a really vital, important revenue source for the general fund. And you see over these past 3 years the upward trajectory to the point now where we're close to $2.3 million. This is a list of proposed expenditures out of the general fund by category. At the top of this list is $3.8 million for public safety. A majority of that $3.8 million is paid to the Will County Sheriff's Office for our contractual agreement for public safety services. Underneath that are personnel and benefits that mostly are located, if not all, in the general fund. And then item 3 on that list is the amount of money that goes to the Homer Township Highway Department to provide public works services in the community at $1.2 million. All the way down to the number 9 one, which is legal, that's $103 in this proposed budget, for a grand total of $7.9 million. This is a pie chart that represents expenditures. You obviously see that the public safety portion of expenditures is the largest, and then you see the public works contract in the red, and then all other in green. This is for the general operating fund. Here's a couple of the main general fund initiatives in this proposed budget. First of all, I always like to mention how much of an increase there is for the sheriff's services. This budget reflects a $122,000 increase over last year's budget for those services. It also, the proposed budget's cost of living and merit increases for staff. It also budgets a new gaming tax and gaming licenses and application fees. There are budgeted resources for economic development promotional materials, budgeted to continue taping and communication of the village board meetings, which I think has been very helpful. Budgeted to complete a complete overhaul of the village website, as I think I've mentioned to the board previously. We've been so grateful to have Chris Luttrell's assistance for a number of years. Chris has decided to step back and retire from that assistance, and this is a perfect opportunity to make a transition, and we have that budgeted in this budget. Also, we have money budgeted to complete the codification project that was begun this past year. At the top of number 8, we see we've budgeted to add 1 full-time administrative assistant position to our clerical staff with corresponding decreases to part-time staff. I know that I've discussed this with the board previously. We have an increased amount of work. And one of the things that we really are looking forward to do is our deputy village clerk over the years has taken on the mantle of like 5 different positions. And we need Elena in that position to get back to her core responsibilities, which involve the computer system, the telephone system, records, obviously with the clerk's office, and a number of other things that she does. Unfortunately, her job responsibilities have been added over the years to the point that she's having a hard time keeping up with the volume of work. So this addition of switching from a temporary part-time position to a full-time position is going to be good because a number of the responsibilities that Elena has taken on over the years are going to be shifted over to this new position. And that's what that item is. Also, and I was going to look back, and I'm not quite certain, but it's been a number of years, I think, since we've added a full-time staff member to staff. So I think that's been very frugal budgeting, but the need is certainly there now. Number 10, we've budgeted a little bit of money to help with roadway debris pickup services, contractual roadway debris pickup services if the board so desires to do that. We've budgeted to continue our graduate student MPA intern program. That was a 2-year commitment, so this next year will be the 2nd year of that. We've budgeted some money. The Administration and Finance Committee is been just briefly discussing a potential donation to our good sister community Lockport for the LTHS School Resource Officer, so we put a place setter in the budget for that in case the village board decides that they do want to make a donation. I budgeted, just given how wet it's been, budgeted a little extra money for mosquito abatement in this coming year if it's needed. And an initiative from the mayor and from our good lieutenant who's sitting in the back of the room. We've budgeted a little money for some liquor and tobacco ordinance compliance checks here in the community. That's number 14. Rounding out the list, number 15, we've budgeted to continue the village newsletter, and hopefully with the addition of the full-time staff member, Elena will be able to spend a little bit more time on that, and we'll be able to get out a solid 3 or 4 newsletters as we would like to do. We've budgeted for continued professional development for the staff, which has been very successful. We've budgeted to purchase some new village decals for the sheriff's vehicles. Also, there are no general fund transfers to other budgetary funds, and we were able to budget for $110,000 for village board contingency in case projects come up over the course of the year that the board would like to fund. Best of all, obviously, no new taxes. Moving on to our next fund, which is our special event fund. This has one revenue line item. It's the amount that's reflected from the revenue from the community festival at $83,500. And then on the expense side, we have the festival is actually budgeted to make a small profit. So you see the expense at $82,400. Because it's going to make a profit, half of that profit has to be or is handed over to Homer Township. So John, of course, has to budget that at $550. And then, of course, there's the expense for Homer Harvest Days at $10,000, bringing the total expense to $92,950. So this is a continuation of this fund, which was established in 2013. It obviously, the main functions are the co-sponsorship of the community festival and Homer Harvest Days. And one of the things I'm suggesting as we maybe get after the festival is completed, that we spend a little time just reviewing the policy sheet that we have for this fund and look at the fund balances and see if we want to make any adjustments to those on the sheet. That would probably come after the festival, after you see how much money is hopefully raised by that. On the environment fund, a lot of exciting things in here. We have the environment surcharge at $31,200 and the Earth Day, Arbor Day event revenues in case they're able to bring in any sponsorship money. That's kind of a place setter. We're not sure how much is going to come in yet. And that brings the total revenues for that fund to $33,000. On the expense side, we have budgeted a new item on number 1. That is for professional services for us to investigate any concerns about potential outdoor lighting ordinance violations by existing businesses. That's a $12,000 budgeted place setter. Then there's money in the budget to hold a paper shredding event, electronic recycling, and a hazardous waste event at $14,500. There's, of course, the Earth Day Arbor Day event at $6,000, Dragonfly area maintenance at $4,000. The Dragonfly area maintenance, if you recall, we did the improvement in Yangus Park to offer residents an opportunity to see how they could restore a creek, the sides of a creek. And we have to do some maintenance on that, especially in this follow-up year after doing it. I don't expect this amount to be this high every single year. I think it'll reduce over time. And then there's a number of other items that round out this fund till you get down to 46,602 in terms of the expenses. So the initiatives, of course, this is another continuation of a fund established in 2013. It continues the longstanding environmental programs like Earth Day, Arbor Day, tree plantings, Land Day event, and stargazing events. Then we have the budgeted amounts, and there you see the individual amounts for the 3 recycling activities at over $3,000 for paper shredding, electronic recycling at $1,500, and then the hazardous waste collection event at $10,000. Each of those events will need to be approved by the village board, but we've put in money as place setters so that you have the opportunity to schedule them if you so desire over the next fiscal year. As I mentioned earlier, there's $12,000 for professional services to assist in the investigation of potential lighting ordinance violations. And then there's $6,600 to maintain the prairie area up on the corner at 151st and Bell, and then the Dragonfly rehabilitation area that I mentioned earlier. The MFT fund has a number of revenue sources. I'll just add a little bit to this chart. Obviously, the MFT taxes is the largest of the, is the largest regular funding item of this fund. And then you see the MFT taxes, it says the capital bill. This actually is the final year. It's $108,867. It's been in place for a number of years for municipalities across the state. It's the final year of this revenue source, so you will no longer see this $100,000 in the MFT fund. And then there's a high growth MFT revenue line item that comes from the state. That has a couple more years left in it at $26,540. Some interest income at $3,000. And then you have a project reimbursement. This is coming from IDOT, or is this the county? This is IDOT. IDOT and Will County at just over $2 million. You'll see a corresponding expense line item on the next page. So these are the expenditures for, the proposed expenditures for the MFT fund. Obviously, the largest one is the 143rd and Lamont Road. So earlier, you saw a revenue line item, and then you see the expense. The difference between the two is roughly, I believe, 300 and some odd thousand, just over 300,000. Then there's a payment to the Homer Township Road District. That's a transfer that happens on an annual basis at $183,600. There's money in here for streetlights, both electricity and maintenance of streetlights. There's a streetlight replacement project, $100,000. This is a place setter also. This is a continuation of the neighborhood streetlight replacement project that we've been doing. And this is a place setter. It may be less than $100,000, maybe a little bit more, but again, the board would have to vote on it after RFPs come back. Then there's right-of-way acquisition that's related to the intersection improvement project and some money budgeted for street signage, bringing the total expenditure to $2.8 million. This is a summary of that fund. The fund begins the fiscal year with $2,089,580, and if all of the revenues and expenditures come in as budgeted, it ends the year at $2,037,441. Land acquisition fund is just this one page this year. It has a beginning balance of just over $1 million. We've budgeted some revenue for interest at $3,000, and then there's some professional service fees in case the village board decides that they want to investigate any land acquisitions. So you start at just over 1 million, and if the revenues and expenditures happen, it ends with just over 1 million at the end of the year. The Park and Recreation Fund. This is a picture of hopefully the future Goodings Grove Park. Work with an engineer on this project will begin this year, with hopefully starting to build the park early next year. This is some proposed revenues for the Park and Recreation Fund. First of all, we have the state grant money for Goodings Grove. That may not actually come in this fiscal year, but we have it in as a place setter, which is our common practice, at $171,000. And then there's some CMAQ trail grants that we expect to get about $56,345 for those. There's some park contributions. Those are from development, new residential development in the community at $10,000. Some projected donations for both benches and flagpoles at $18,000. And then some interest income at $35,000, bringing the total proposed revenues to $258,845. This is a picture, of course, of the new Aaron's Hills Park, and it's turned out to be a beautiful park. This was a part of last year's budget and is also reflected in this year's as we close it out. One of our most colorful parks. We're waiting for the grass to grow. You see the cover there in the highlighted green. Waiting for the grass to grow before we officially dedicate it, invite everybody out for some ice cream. Here's a summary of the proposed expenditures out of the Park and Recreation Fund. First of all, park development. That is continuation of some money for Erin Hills and also the Goodings Grove Park. Then you see the Heroes Trail development, again at $263,320. You see park and trail maintenance and mowing of the various parks at $49,250. Heroes Trail Bench Program, which the board has already approved. Those are the purchases of the benches. That's been delayed a little bit. We were going to order those and have them delivered this winter, and Mike DeVivo and his good staff was going to help us put it together, and we were waylaid a little bit by a few snowstorms. So we are going to be ordering those soon and putting them together now that the snow has stopped. Some money for signage, both along the trail and in parks. Also some money for park equipment and installation in our existing parks. There's $7,000 budgeted for flagpole purchase and installation, which hopefully will be happening before the end of next month. Some money for electric, water, and some administration charges at $3,750. And then I've put in as a place setter Woodbine Master Plan at $75,000. This would be money that we would expend to hire a consultant to work with us to plan out the future use for Woodbine. I put a little asterisk in there because I would assume that would probably be a multi-fiscal year project, and that $75,000 may be enough, maybe too much, may not be enough, but I just want to bring that to the board's attention. And then number 10 is an interesting initiative that Mayor Daley has talked to me about, but also the Park and Recreation Committee has been discussing on and off for a while. And we put in $50,000 as a place setter. This is something that, of course, would ultimately have to come to the board through the Parks and Recreation Committee. What this is right now the Village of Homer Glen does not have a lot of public indoor active recreation space, as the board knows. The village has decided over the years to, do a lot of have a lot of privatization relationships with the sheriff's office, with the Homer Highway Department, and the committee is looking at the opportunity of working with potentially Orland Park or Lamont, just to name two of the options, to offer residents in Homer Glen an opportunity for a reduced membership fees at facilities that are just outside of our boundary but are already built. These are indoor recreational facilities that have swimming pools, tracks, workout facilities, things of that nature. So the Park and Recreation Committee is discussing it, and I put a place setter in the budget in case the board decides to move forward with that on recommendation from the committee. This is a photo, as the board well knows, of the potential Goodings Grove trail addition to our Heroes Trail. We haven't heard back yet on the whether or not we've received the grant that we've applied for, but we have budgeted some money because we're thinking positive. We're hoping that we'll get it. It'll be a great addition to the trail if we get it. And then, as the board knows and the public has seen before, these are just some diagrams of the future south extension, which will extend basically from the senior housing up here to the west of Village Hall, all the way down to 159th Street. And those are some pictures of that. We have some money budgeted to complete the phase 2 in this year's budget. This is a summary of the Park and Recreation budget. It starts out at $2.4 million. There's projected revenue of $258,845. Potential budgeted expenses of $942,420. With a ending budget surplus, if everything comes in revenue-wise and is expended expense-wise, of $1.7 million. On the debt service side, this beginning balance of this fund is zero. And then we have budgeted revenue from our home rule sales tax of $2.5,071,058. The expense is the bond payment, and that's at $1.999950. And then that obviously is leaving us a budgeted fund surplus of $571,108. The board wanted to be conservative when the bond was discussed and make sure that we could cover our expense obligations, and clearly this shows here in the first year that we're able to do that. On the capital project fund side, this particular fund begins the year with just over $4 million. There is budgeted revenue of $820,339 and budgeted expenses of $4,056,558, leading to, if all the expenses and revenues happened as outlined in the budget, leading to a fund surplus of $899,654 at the end of next fiscal year. Obviously, this fund has a number of expenses in it, so I'll spend some time going through those. First of all, we have to close out the Oak Valley Subdivision Stormwater Improvement Program, and that's budgeted at $26,029. For those of you who were able to swing down and look at that improvement after our latest storm event that happened just this past week, the improvement functioned beautifully. Everything worked the way it was supposed to, which was good news, because that's turned out to be a great improvement. Then we have future Bruce Road improvements at $159,420. This is a commitment the village has made. This has been a place setter in any number of budgets going back a couple of years. I put a place setter in the capital project fund for any potential non-LOC subdivision improvements that the village board would like to do. Of course, this would require the village board to take action. I put a place setter in at $500,000 in this proposed budget. There is $168,437 budgeted for potential subdivision improvements in Amberfield, Carly Acres, Cedar Brook, and the Suzito Place subdivisions. All of this money is money that we have in the bank from letter of credits that the village board called. So we've budgeted to basically close out all of those subdivision improvements this year if the board is so interested in doing so. I know staff will have a number of suggestions to continue our efforts in those subdivisions. There is $477,669 budgeted for the 151st and Parker Road intersection improvement, which of course has already begun with the relocation of utility lines. And I believe, Mike, I heard that the major improvement project will begin in May, or late May, early June. Okay, so that's on its way to us pretty quickly. There is a place setter in the budget for Village Hall remodeling project at $2.5 million. Obviously, I could have put any number of numbers in that line item. I spent quite a bit of time looking through the great architectural proposals that we got, looking to see what other communities had spent for remodeling projects, other remodeling projects that other governmental entities had done. Had some conversations with various colleagues of mine who've been through remodeling projects, like my good friend in Lamont, the administrator of Lamont, and they spent roughly about $2 million on their project. And so I've been having a lot of conversations, and this is a number that I came up with to include in the budget. There's also other improvements and miscellaneous at 37.5. That includes a Farmview lift station, capital improvement, some Opticom money, and miscellaneous professional fees, legal fees, et cetera, that make up that 37.5. There's also money in there for potential professional service fees if the board decides to move forward with exploring the western extension of the sanitary sewer line again. And then we built a contingency in of $50,000, which is always good when you have such expensive capital improvement projects that you're considering. The new fund that the board has established is the CIP Emerald Ash Borer Tree Replacement Fund. Was established with a $500,000 transfer from excess general fund, operating fund monies. The board did that recently. This new fund has $1,000 budgeted for interest and has $134,000 budgeted for potential expenditures. There is money in to continue arrangement with an arborist to assist the village and residents with concerns about dead and dying trees. And then $125,000 in for potential parkway tree replanting, whatever program the board ultimately decides to move forward. I budgeted $125,000 because if the board decided to actually pay the full cost of replanting trees, which staff is estimating at approximately $600 for both purchasing a decent-sized tree and then having planted by a contractor, that would give you the opportunity to plant about 208 public parkway trees, which we thought would be an awfully healthy program in 1 year, especially for a first year of that kind of program. So that's where we come up with $125,000. So the beginning balance, as I just mentioned a little bit ago, the board transferred $500,000 into that fund, $1,000 for revenue, $134,000 for expense would leave you with $367,000. The main purpose of this fund would be for arborist services over time, and then obviously for parkway tree replanting. And so the CIP bond fund is next. That has a beginning balance of $15,674,197. We've budgeted $40,000 as potential interest, and then there's several items that we've budgeted for expenses. One is the continuation of stormwater improvement programs in the community at $928,815. The expenses related to the Northern Will County Water Agency are part of the budget of that intergovernmental affair at $145,300. The 159th Street improvement costs at $1.3 million. Those are items related to our expenses for trails and various other things that the board has decided to move forward with. And then this last item is an initiative that I actually have put into the budget, and I hope that I'm able to get the board's support on it. It's a topic that's near and dear to all of the trustees' hearts. When you initially approved the bond fund, we talked quite a bit about the importance of stormwater, making stormwater improvements in the community. And a part of those improvements is to get the residents of the community as much information as possible, both individual residents and homeowners associations, information about how we can make decisions on our own private properties that will help to alleviate some of the stormwater that is ending up in stormwater detention facilities around the community. So I put $20,000 as a place setter in the budget to give the village the opportunity to establish an education program for residents in the community and homeowners associations, so we can encourage things like rain barrel programs and what can be done on private property so that more water stays on private property. And that's what that $20,000 is, for a grand total of an end of the year budget surplus of $13,249,882. So I've kind of talked about each of these already. The two things I think I would highlight on the bottom in terms of future initiatives that have been approved but not yet budgeted. The first one is the actual, obviously, purchase price for the Bedford Park Water Transmission Line, once that gets through the court system. And the second one would be any expenses related to the county's project from Bell Road from 159th up to 151st. That's the village portion of approved sidewalk, Opticon, and median improvements. We don't know what those are yet. Unlike, IDOT gave us the proposals and the amounts, and so we've incorporated those in the budget, but the county hasn't yet given us those amounts, and of course, that'll come back to the village board for discussion also. The final fund is really a success story. It's a good one to end on, I think. For those of you who were on the board when the board made the initial decision to build, or to contribute, to the interchange at 147th Street out by the tollway, I don't know if the board at that time knew where the money was going to come from to pay for it, but they had vision and they knew that that access would be important to the public. And so this is the final year of this budget. You have saved up money over many years, and you have fully funded this tollway fund. So at the end of this fiscal year, your obligation for that tollway interchange will be met with a payment to the tollway of $1,050,000. And I think that's a real success story, and the board and the village board that was in place at the time, and this one is to be commended for making that happen. And then getting back, just as a summary again, we have 7.9 in proposed general fund expenses and revenues. There's overall budgeted revenues of $14.5 million and overall budgeted expenses at 21.5. Again, there are no new taxes proposed, no municipal property taxes for general operations. Obviously, big infrastructure improvements on the stormwater side, Village Hall side, intersection improvements, etc. Obviously showing that we're taking some action now and planning for the future. The village, as the mayor said today, our financial shape is certainly solid as a rock. And John and I, who's had the opportunity to be real quiet here, now his part comes in. If the board, mayor and the board have any questions that you'd like to ask us. Thank
Pam,
you.
I think that was a nice presentation and very thorough. I really don't have any questions. I'll just open it up if anybody has any questions. Go ahead, George.
John, I'm here for the CIP bond fund initiatives. Number 3 says Bedford Park Water Transmission Line purchase through the NWCWA. That money would come back to us after the purchase was set, correct?
Yes, it would.
Okay,
Yes, it
so
would.
Then the same thing with future initiatives, that money would come back for the actual purchase of Bedford Park line.
Yep, that was the plan,
Okay, and the
Right.
same thing with
through
the
a
11
consolidated
million.
bond issue.
All right.
It
the
gets
same thing with the
rolled
11
into a
million?
bond.
Huh?
It gets rolled into a bond.
Okay, so we end up getting all that money back.
Right.
Then on the Bell Road, village portion of approved sidewalk. We would be doing that, or that would be funded by Will County, or?
The county will, trustee, the county will build it, and they will bill us. First, they will be getting us an estimate of the cost, now that you've given them direction that that's what you'd like to explore. This is the sidewalk on the west side of the road.
Correct.
That we're talking about, yeah. So they will ultimately build, their contractors through them will build it, and then they would charge us back.
Okay. Opticon, wasn't it the money coming out of the gaming licenses?
It is. It will be coming out. I can let John talk to you about how he does that from an accounting standpoint.
We could provide the trustees with a matching report that would show the funds that came in through the gaming the license or
The
Gaming.
TAP,
Yeah,
the
we're-
revenue that comes back from the state.
we have detailed schedules that'll identify that. It's, so yes, the money will be there from that, but we were gonna pay it out of, the CIP bond.
Right.
Fund.
Can we do that? Because when we originally got that bond, wasn't it strictly for 159th Street sewer problems and the water line?
Well, most of the Opticom expenses will actually be from 159th, probably. We can certainly take the Opticom expenses from Bell Road out of another area if you'd like. I'm not sure that it will amount to a significant amount of money. It may be fairly inconsequential. But as we move forward on those Opticom expenses, we can bring those issues to the board for you guys to make that decision.
Okay, I just want to make sure for the CIP bond that we're doing what we said in the first place to the public. Okay,
Trustee Costa?
thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just a question. Do you want us to ask specific line questions or just get them to you?
You can ask them tonight. We're happy to try to entertain them. If we have to go back and look, we have so much, this is just the backup. So we have so many pages of paper. If we can't answer it tonight, we'll get back to you. But go
Okay,
ahead.
Just a few. I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
how many other
please.
questions how many questions the other trustees have, but, you know, if I can ask a few, and if it gets too many with everybody, maybe if we can get them into John and to Cam.
Right.
But I would ask that all the trustees would have those questions forwarded and the answers forwarded to them at
Right.
future dates if we don't get to them tonight.
Any questions that come up, and let me say this, sometimes the questions that come in from trustees are, larger questions that I just know that all the trustees will know the answer to, and sometimes they're very small, a little bit less consequential. But any of the big questions that come in during our meetings or through email, we'll make sure and keep a master list and send them out to everybody.
Okay.
The questions and answers.
Okay, for example, just a few of them, and I'm not going to go through all mine. I think I can
Okay.
address some of the other ones to John. Page 18, under the intern contract, we're going from 14,000 to 20,700 project for next year. That's a substantial increase for an intern.
Well, there's kind of a reason for it. We had it budgeted in a multitude of different places this past year, and John has done some consolidating, so John, why don't you?
It wasn't a full 12-month cycle in the previous fiscal year. And the first couple of months he came on, he was a part-time employee. So it was in two pieces, but the major difference is that we're fiscal 15 is 12-month contract, and I think we had about 8 months in the current fiscal year 14.
And one of the reasons that that's under contractual is because we actually have a contract with NIU, so it doesn't show up. That's where a majority of the money goes. It's not like a regular part-time employee of the village. It's a contractual obligation.
Okay, then also on page 19, under the website, I did hear that Chris is going to be retiring or leaving us, but our actual cost this year is $125. We're budgeting $65,000 for next year. That's a big jump.
Well, yeah, the difference is, it's really not for the operation of the website, really. What that $65,000 is for a complete rebuild. The website that is in place right now, it certainly has served our purpose for a number of years, but it was all written years ago, and it requires, every time you make even the smallest adjustment to it, you actually have to write code to do that. And so it is not user-friendly at all, and I know Elena is struggling mightily almost every day just uploading things onto the site. So what will happen, what we're proposing will happen, is the same thing we wanted to do last year, but other projects kind of pushed it aside, is that we want to, we have an RFP ready to go. We're actually taking it to the Administration and Finance Committee this month, that we want to send out to firms that have built websites for municipalities. And what we hope we'll get back is a very dynamic website that is much easier to upload to, that Elena and any number of staff members that we train will be able to do. The existing one we have in website years is like it's 10 years old. Do you know what I mean? And it's just not user-friendly. So we have to completely rebuild it.
Okay. One more question, and then it's just a comment. On the same page, down near the bottom, on the public safety liaison, is that the one we talked about earlier with the policeman and?
It is, yes. I put a place setter in there. The board may decide that they want to make a contribution to that, or you may decide that you don't want to. You may decide that it's a higher amount or a lower amount, but I needed to put a place setter in, so I just put a place setter in.
Okay. And then just one comment. I noticed that, that we set aside $500,000 for the tree replacement, which I think thinking for the future and putting something in place is probably one of the best things we can do. We just bought 100-plus acres of land, and I don't see anything in the budget to start a fund for future maintenance on this, although it's going to be more in 2015, but is there any place that we can start a line item for that and start putting funds, money into that fund?
We were thinking about that, and by the time the maintenance costs start to come in, it will be fiscal 16. So I think we're going to skip this budget year with that.
We will be doing some activity in this fiscal year, but that, we don't think that those bills will arrive until May beyond, so that's why you don't see that. Okay, Ms. Mickey.
Okay. You have anything, trustee Sabo?
Yes. Manager Davis and I talked about this today, and we talked about it before, and it concerns the Earth Day, excuse me. It concerns the Earth Day Arbor Day program at 6,000. That's kind of like operating on a shoestring without much publicity. And the publicity includes signs and also includes newsletters. So really, in conversation with him, we talked about increasing that to 7,000. We don't always need signs, but we always do need publicity. So we'd like to increase that to 7,000. If you think about a 2-day event, Homer Harvest Days is 15,000, and they do get more sponsors than Earth Day does. So if you would divide that in half, you can see that 7,000 is less per day for a 1-day event. So that is our request. And then I would like to review what the CIP bond money is supposed to be used for. And because I want to make sure, we as trustees all want to make sure that what we promised the residents it would be used for is what it's being used for. So it's 159th Street. It would be for the non-LOC subdivisions. It would be for the water transmission line and for Fediment Creek sanitary and sewer. Am I correct on those?
Actually, not completely. The bond money is to be used for 159th Street for stormwater improvements. And I'm trying to think, there's 3. Stormwater improvements, 159th Street, and the Northern Will County Water Agency.
Right.
Originally, the list was larger, and it did have Fediment Creek and the other item that you mentioned. But it was, if you look in the minutes, ultimately, it was taken down to stormwater improvements, 159th Street, and the water agency.
Say that again.
159th Street,
Right.
the water agency, Northern
Yes.
Will County Water Agency, and, what did I forget? And stormwater improvements.
Stormwater.
I believe I'm very correct on that, but what I'll do is we'll pull the minutes out again, highlight the section where the board made those decisions, and I'll include it in my weekly report next week.
Okay, so but it also it did or did not include the Fediment Creek?
I don't believe it did. I think that
Okay.
was pulled out at the end.
Okay, so then let me ask these questions. I want to go to, I'm trying to be careful about this because, you know, what we passed is, but I came across a PowerPoint presentation that was by Bauman Company, the bond company that helped us. And so when we made that presentation to the public, it included 159th, the non-LOCs, the water transmission line, and Fediment Creek. So you're saying since that time, it has been changed to stormwater improvements.
Now, not since that time. The night the village board made the improvements, made the approval of the bond, you were very specific about what it was supposed to go for. And it's reflected in the minutes, which I don't have right in front of me. So I can make copies of those and distribute them to everybody.
Well, I want to make sure, because I did run across a PowerPoint program.
Right,
And checking it, and it doesn't agree with what
Right,
the
the
changes are.
PowerPoint program from the bond council, or the bond company, and also from me, had a lot more stuff in it. We went through, remember I went through all the non-LOC subdivisions, and I had amounts for all those. And at the end, the board decided that they just wanted to focus on the 3 things. Now, I'll stand corrected if I'm wrong on that, but I've looked at it several times, and I'm pretty certain that it's for those 3 items.
Okay, just 3 items then. Okay. Okay, then I still have the questions. If we go to the Emerald Ash Borer tree replacement fund, I mean, which you're very happy about that. The transfer came, we voted on the transfer from the general fund. But I am surprised that it is coming out of the CIP fund, which is the bond fund.
No, that's an acronym for capital improvement projects.
Okay, so that's
CIP
not bond.
fund, no, it's not.
Not bond.
It's just an acronym.
Yeah, because that was
Every time you
misleading.
see CIP doesn't mean it's the bond
Capital
fund.
improvements.
Well, we could speak in those acronyms and.
I'm sorry. I don't even like them.
Okay, well, that answers that question. And then you have here, so that's the arborist at 9,000. Now, that would include residents being able to call up and getting a response on their problem. It may not be EAB related.
Right. So past practice over the course of the past maybe, year and a half has been resident requests come in and Heather handles those. And she goes out and she does site visits, and 9 times out of 10, she puts it on a list for the arborist to go out and take a look at. Most of the calls are for parkway trees. Very few are for ash trees on private property. But if you recall, the direction that I got from the board a while back was that if residents did need some advice on ash trees that were on their private property, that we could utilize the arborist for that. And we have done that a couple times. I think to the residents' great benefit.
Well, it is a great program, and I don't know that a lot of residents know about that, but there's a lot that an arborist can do.
Right.
Especially if we're going to have this tree program, if we're going to do something at Woodbine.
Right.
And in analyzing, we should analyze those trees. Okay, then, going to the CIB bond fund.
Trustee Sabo, could you give us a page on that?
Yes, 65.
Thank you.
Okay, so on 65, we're just following what you said about what we can use the money for. Stormwater improvements, the water transmission line, 159th Street. And then stormwater education and memberships, I am questioning that. It would be under the bond fund.
Correct. Things related to stormwater. And, and I understand why you'd question it and either support it or not. My personal feeling about stormwater is that it's more than just the bricks and mortar stuff that we're doing. Stormwater issues begin the moment the water rolls out of your gutters at your house. That's where the stormwater issues begin. And so the hope is that, we can utilize some of this money in an education way to help the residents, help us, reduce the amount of water that ends up in a lot of our stormwater detention ponds that have had trouble over the years. So that's kind of the goal behind that.
Well, it does start with a property, and that is true. And we are hoping that at Earth Day, Arbor Day, we do have someone who knows about rain barrels, would be selling rain barrels, and could actually help the homeowner hook them up if there is a need. Then going to page 66. I still wanted clarification on the Opticon. I know that was coming out of was supposed to come out of the gaming revenue, but it is listed under CIP bond. And if it is for 159th Street, I can understand that, but if it is for any other street, I don't think that that's where it belongs. Is that right?
Well, yes, I totally understand that. In the later date, I was going to come to the board and talk to you a little bit about the bond money and whether or not you wanted to extend it to improvements on Bell Road, okay? So I think we will have that, I want to have that discussion at some point in the months ahead. I was going to wait until the county came back to us with their estimate costs. None of those costs are, any costs related to that shows up in the budget are just place setters, because none of those costs are going to happen this fiscal year because of the timing of the project. So if it's the will of the board that no Opticon, no sidewalk, no, any kind of expenses relating to Bell Road happen out of the CIP bond fund, then that will be achieved. If it's the will of the board that we do that, then we can budget accordingly. But none of those, we're not expecting, because of the timing of the project, obviously it hasn't even started yet, we're not expecting any of those expenses out of the budget this fiscal year.
Well, it's better that it comes out of the gaming fund. I mean, I believe that was the mayor's idea.
It's kind of an accounting issue, okay? John is going to absolutely keep track of, to make sure that the money comes in and goes out from the way the board wants it to on the gaming revenue. Okay, it's kind of an accounting issue. And when we actually get to the point, we've got a couple months on our belt now with the gaming revenue, 3 or 4?
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to start actually giving the board a spreadsheet, now that we've got a couple months, so that you can see how much is building up in that fund. And then, of course, there'll be corresponding expenses that we will also indicate on that spreadsheet. So you can always see where that fund is. Because the Opticom expenses, even if we do all of 159th Street that we've designated to, and even if you decide to add the Opticom expenses of Bell Road, the revenue from the gaming revenue is such, or looks like it's such, that, those expenses will be paid pretty quickly. So the board will have to be making a decision about what else they'd like to fund with the gaming revenues beyond Opticom.
Well, I just want to make it clear that since we know what the bond money is for, I don't think the bond money should be used on Bell Road. That is not the direction that we were going in at that meeting, or that we voted on. And then I wanted to, so I really don't think it should be put on page 66. But then would you explain the median improvements? Will County is actually paying for those, aren't they?
That is, again, a reference to the future. Again, none of those expenses for Bell Road are going to be in this village road. If the board decides that we want to put trees in that median ultimately, we told the county sidewalk, grass median, Opticon. Okay, the county is also going to provide us with some information about trees. Okay, we didn't tell them we wanted trees, but they are going to provide what the cost would be if we wanted them to do that. So those expenses may be coming in the future, but none of them will be reflected in this budget. That's why it's listed under future.
Well, I still don't think it should be listed under the future bond page. I mean, on page 66.
Right.
If anything goes for Bell Road.
Right, well, but I explained why I did that, because I'm going to be coming and talking to the board in the future when the estimates come
Well,
back from the county. You and I can disagree on it, but I do want to come to the board and have that discussion at a later date when I get the quotes from
Well,
the county.
I don't think it's a matter of disagreement. I think it's a matter of following what the intention of the bond money was to be used for, and it wasn't for Bell Road.
Right, that's why I said I'm going to come back to
You eventually
the
have to either approve it from one fund or the next, so we could sit here all night and argue.
Well, I know, that shouldn't
No,
have been
it's-
put on this page. That's all
Okay.
I'm saying.
Okay.
And just wanted to check on page 58, that it says Cedar Brook. Was Cedar Brook a non-LOC, or was it an LOC?
Cedar Brook, we actually got an LOC for. The trouble is, even though we got the money from Cedar Brook, the LOC was not large enough to cover all of the unmet public improvements. So that is one of our subdivisions that is both. It's both an LOC and a non-LOC.
Okay.
Fair to say, yeah.
I would like to ask you about page 14, who pays for this debris pickup, and who are we helping with this pickup?
Okay, the idea behind that, it actually was in last year's budget too, but we weren't able to move forward with it. The highway department definitely does some debris pickup in the community, but they do not do they're not able to, with their staff, do as much debris pickup as I personally feel is necessary in the community. I'm used to roadways that are a little bit cleaner than ours are. Specifically right now, there's a considerable amount of trash in the right-of-ways of the major roads in town right now. And so I have put money in there for us to hopefully move forward this year with an RFQ to send out to firms that would actually go down the right-of-ways on a scheduled basis and pick up all of the trash that is in the right-of-ways so that the main roads in the community look cleaner than they currently do.
Okay, good.
It's a very time-consuming thing. I think that Mike and his staff try to hit all the hot spots. In particular, when large items fall off trucks and stuff like that, they're out and they take care of it right away. But we really need maybe a little bit more organized way to do that so that the roadways look cleaner.
Well, I agree with that another firm should be, because of the highway department can only do so much.
Right. It's hard to
Okay.
keep up
And
with.
then on page 15, you budgeted for newsletters, and I wanted to know how many you thought were possible within a year's time? Or how many newsletters is that budgeted for?
Right. Yeah, we budgeted for 4. If we do 3, I will be extremely happy, and our goal is to do 3, absolutely at least do 3 this fiscal year. That will be significantly helped by the addition of the full-time staff member, because then Elena, who is responsible for the newsletter, will have more time to make sure that they get out on a regular basis. I think she does an outstanding job with them. The whole staff contributes. But when you're way down by responding, as an example, she spends one whole day a week just responding to FOIAs, almost. It's hard to get things like newsletters done when your daily activities are so impacted by a million different items. So that full-time staff member will help make that happen, I think. Because that full-time staff member is going to take over the responsibility of FOIAs, just as one example. So,
Okay, are you complete there, Margaret?
Well, I'm complete as of now. I don't have a question. Something may come up.
Trustee K. Janice?
You know, I'm gonna, I know I want to have further conversations with Cameron. There is a couple of things that I just want clarification of, but for the sake of it, so I've already started looking into this, I'd like to have some time with Cameron this week on a couple of things. But one thing I do notice throughout the several pages is, it seems there's a lot of revenue or expenditures that are going into finding process, where we're putting one area, $12,000 to hire professional service to go find problems with our local businesses so we could set fines. So that's a little disturbing on that part, and I'd like to have some further conversation. I don't know how we, as a village, would go about $12,000 for finding violations of our residents and/or our business. So I'd like to, maybe have a little further conversation on that with Cameron, if I may. And that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Suisse?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Margaret covered, Trustee Sabo covered quite a few things that I might have a question on. But let's go to page 22, please. And just I'm just taking this for an example, economic development expenses. The difference in the 10-month actual and the projected is for annual salary for the 84. So this was only a 10-month, right? So that's not an increase.
That's correct, it is.
Oh, it's only a 10-month, so it's not a full year to year, so I'm not comparing year
Well,
to year.
and that, under that 2014 heading, you have the last year's budget, you have this year's 10-month, year-to-date.
Oh, I see, okay.
And our projected completion of fiscal 14.
Okay, so like if there was any, like say, and I'm just picking this out because I was closest to this page. So if there was any staff expense accounts or staff expenses, it would be shown on the bottom under those codings? Like where it says mileage,
Yes,
food, that would be all under travel reimbursement? For like reimbursement for staff expenses? I mean, where would all the coding be?
Like if she's going to a conference, this
Or-
particular one you're bringing up is basically a budget for one person. That's economic development, we have one
Yeah,
staff person.
but yeah,
Yeah.
just to make it easy.
So in here, like under her meetings and conferences, that $9,500 seems like a lot of money, obviously, right, for one person. Well, that's one person for her meetings and conferences, but it also includes all the expenses related to the Recon event out in Las Vegas, the Economic Development Convention. So that, which involves more than just her. It involves me going, typically, sometimes the mayor
Oh,
goes,
so that's all
et
in
cetera.
the same
So that is in
coding?
that line
It's
item
not
too, because it's
separate?
economic development related.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then mileage and travel reimbursements, $1,000 when she goes down to Chicago for local recon events, when she's going to the Will County Economic Development meetings, that all comes out of this particular area for her.
Okay, so and if another.
And I have some line items in administration that covers like myself and Aaron and Heather
Okay.
and Michael and all, and so does building department. So we have a lot of the same line items.
Okay. So if somebody from the building department, for some reason, would want to go on a conference and it was
Right.
economic development, it would be all under that category
Yeah,
code.
sometimes that actually happens where there's a specific topic, like in economic development, that maybe Joe would like to go, because they're doing an economic development thing related to housing, or, mixed-use housing and stuff, and Janie will say, hey, Joe, would you like to go? Joe Baber, I'm speaking about. Would you like to go with me? And sometimes she'll take the expense out of her line item, or sometimes Joe will take it out of his for training.
Okay.
They have the flexibility to do that. But, so, does that answer?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Is it?
Oh, and then, I think this was, I'm sorry. It was the 7,000, on page 48, under parks, the flagpoles. Now, is that something that we're going to be doing, is putting like the flagpoles in the various parks?
This is actually, this was already approved by the board, and we had hoped to get it done at the end of last calendar year, but we didn't get to it.
Is
Now
that Stonebridge?
Yeah,
Oh,
we're gonna get it installed hopefully before the end of May.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, trustee DeVivo?
Nothing that wasn't answered already. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any follow-up questions, or we close this thing up?
Yeah,
Trustee Saylor?
just something very quickly under the Environment Fund. I wanted to clarify something here, and that would be on page 31. Unlike other ordinances, such as signage or facade, it's not as technical as it is for lighting. So it's obvious when there's a sign violation, you don't need a professional to come in. We have staff to do that. On page 31, it says number 1, lighting violation, professional services. That's to analyze whether or not something has changed, and to investigate that. And there's a way to be proactive on that. And that is that, and it's very easy to do. The Environment Committee is willing to do that kind of thing, or with assistance. But you take photographs, and then if there's a change that there is a violation. The amount may appear to be high, but it is not to fine. This isn't to fine. As I understand it, this is only to analyze after information is given to the lighting consultant. Am I correct on that, Manager?
Well, I'd say you're correct, but the next step, of course, after you analyze if there are violations, is that you have to notify the business that there's a violation, give them the opportunity to fix it. If they choose not to fix it, or it doesn't happen quickly enough, then you fine them as you would with any code violation, whether it was lighting or building or debris or whatever it would be. So I think, ultimately, if you're not able to work something out and there actually is a code violation, it could potentially lead to a fine.
Well, it is good to be proactive on this, and the Environment Committee has some ideas on how to be proactive, and that's through education. Not to just find a violation, and then somebody finds out about it, and then they're educated. So you want to educate them first, and there is a part in the ordinance that has given them plenty of time to do that. So there's also another thing that can be done to be proactive and to reduce the cost of this, and that is for communication to the businesses. This really does not involve residents.
Okay. Is there any further comments on this workshop? All
Mayor,
right.
the only thing I would, if I could please, about all that discussion, I know there'll be more, we'll have conversations. There was only one very specific, that's 1492-80-520. It's the budget for Earth Day, Arbor Day. The trustee Sabo suggested that it move from 6,000 to 7,000, which I certainly can make that adjustment in the budget that comes before the board in 2 weeks. That's the only one that I was keeping track. That's the only specific increase or decrease that I heard. Just want to double check and make sure.
It really doesn't matter, because we have a contingency fund. If
We
she-
do.
if,
We could,
you know,
we
if she-
do.
if she-
I could make that adjustment in the next budget. Be happy to do it. That's what this process is all about. I just wanted to just publicly say it, because that's the
Fine.
only one I heard, the only specific one I heard. Okay?
And my reason for bringing that up at the board is because the other events are specific to their budget.
Okay.
And if the Environment Committee would spend over $6,000, you'd say, oh, you went over budget.
No,
So
we
that-
heard
that's,
you explain, and
So-
if you need the money, you'll get the money.
well, thank you very much. It's just that we like to be firm on our budget and stay within our costs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, then that concludes the workshop. Sorry, I have a piece of candy in my mouth. The next item is executive session. The next item is go into executive session for the purpose of discussion of land acquisition. Is there a motion to go into executive session for these purposes? First by trustee Yukich, second by trustee DeVivo. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. We're going to move to executive session.
Could you give us 5 minutes? For a rest.
To close executive session.
So moved.
First by trustee Costa. Second by trustee Yukich. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee Kajanis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo? Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, is there, do you need a motion to reconvene the meeting? Okay. Is there any old business?
I've got just one thing there. I've been hearing, I've gotten some phone calls, I've been hearing some rumors from other people on the street that they're hearing things about Woodbine right now. And it was out there that you were gonna have a meeting with HAC, which I have no problem with whatsoever, because we do need to know how this stuff is going to start working in the village for the sports end. But I would also like to make sure that if anyone's meeting with anyone, that no one's making any promises to anyone for anything that we're gonna do, because we don't know what we're doing right now. So, with that being said, I also went by Woodbine again Sunday. I was supposed to go Saturday, but couldn't make it, and I sat down with Jim Ludwig. He took me for a walk through the building, showed me everything that we had inside of it, and because I had talked to him once before about seeing if he wanted to stay there so it saves the village money, because we can't do anything with it real quick. And I'll try to get through this real quick, but I would like something for a workshop, so we can discuss this and we can start bringing the public in. But when I sat down with Jim Ludwig, he had told me that what he is looking for is if he could stay open, he would take the eastern section of the building, which would free up the other complete section to where we could renovate, do everything that we need to do, because we don't really have the money to start doing the senior center right now. If it's gonna be a senior center or whatever the community, the section's gonna be open. It would also give us an opportunity to save some money on the cutting of the grass, because it would be done. It would also give us some more rent, and it gives us time to be able to work out the village building before we do work on the land. So what I would like to do is I would like to see if we could get Jim Ludwig in here on a workshop, go over a few things and see how the board feels about allowing him to stay in and do the golf course. He said he would, originally wanted to stay at least till 2015, and if he could go further, he'd go further. But we have to let him know soon because he is in the process of starting to tell people that he is going to be out of business after this year, and if he did that, then there's no sense in doing it. Then everything falls in our lap. So with that, I'd like a consensus from the board.
Well, I'd just like to say this, is that everybody that I've talked to in this community wants to move forward and get it used temporarily until we have a plan in place. The Ludwig family is getting out of the business because it's not a profitable business. As a businessman, I don't believe the village board should be in the business of loaning $3.4 million to an individual family to keep them in business. I'd like that offer to me. Secondly, I think it would be a very dangerous situation to be doing a rehab of a building with him using some type of golf entity within the same building we're trying to rehab. A rehab usually takes 100% of the building to look at, to rehab for the purposes of the village. Plus, you need golf carts, plus, like I said before, kids are using property out in front of Marion Village to practice. Kids are on Parker Road. They need police cars to get them in and off of Parker Road, squatting on uneven property at 33C. This is a manicured piece of property that the taxpayers paid for. We made an agreement with Jim Ludwig. He agreed to move out of there 2014. We did a swap with him for the money for through 2014 in exchange for him to close 2014, December 31st. I just don't see it. I think that people of Homer Glen will be outraged.
Well, I still would like it to bring it before the board to see what the board says.
But that's fine. I have no problem doing a workshop.
Does anyone have a problem with the workshop?
It has, here's one of the problems with it, unless you're gonna do dual workshops and whatever. Cam, what do you have coming as far as workshops go?
Well, at some point, okay, there's a couple things on the list. We've got to do the 159th Street study. That has got to get done. We've got, at some point, there's going to be lighting recommendations coming forward from the Environment and then the Economic Development Committee. Let's see, there's a couple other ones. I'm not pulling them all off my head. I think I have 3 or 4 topics right now for workshops. But, it's whatever the board wants to do, we just rearrange,
Okay, well, I have no problem having a workshop on it, because I'd like to get down to the bottom of it, because I do know the people of this community want to use that property, and it can very well be used temporarily to accommodate the kids of this community. And it's a flat piece of property. I've already talked with the superintendent about what it costs to cut the property with one other person once a week with the weed and feed. And I can share all that with you as soon as he gets me a proposal, which he's in the process of doing.
Mayor, it probably would be better to have the discussion sooner or later, because when
Put
we
it on
do
the
get,
next meeting then.
when we do get to the point of, working with the architects, if it's the will of the board that the whole east side of the building is off limits, that would be a much different design than the whole building is in play. So we would want to get to that pretty quickly, because that will impact the work that we do with our architects.
Okay, put it as a
how do you-
workshop for the next meeting.
It's gonna be a
But how do you design, I suppose that's true. How do you design a building and then just lop off a section of it and say that that's what's gonna be, we're not gonna use that right now? So that would mean that the village has the expense of going back to that section that we didn't use and redo it again
We
at
don't
a
have to
later
redo
date?
anything. That's why I want a workshop. I don't want to nitpick this thing tonight. I want a workshop to get an opportunity, because, first of all, we don't
But
have
don't we
anything in
need to
place.
know from the architects first what their designs are?
The design is, we're designing the village hall. We're not developing the community center right now. When I walk through the building, there's a cutoff place where we could have, all the banquet halls would be ours, the pro shop would be ours, sections of the basement would be ours, everything, we could do everything that we need to do. When they did the golf course, Marcia, they did it in 2 stages. They had the front section, then they built all the back section, then they closed the front section, redid that, and then opened up everything all at once. we can do the same thing, because what everyone has to, just remember here, we don't know how we're funding this. We can't start the park until we
Okay,
get done
from a
with the building.
financial standpoint, that's what we need to find out.
That's what we're trying to
We need
find
to
out.
look at that, maybe that's what the workshop better have, set out for us. Because from a financial standpoint, I don't understand how we're gonna do this.
Well,
you know
the
what?
first problem is, we haven't hired an architect to tell us how this building would go. I believe you're putting the cart before the horse. You're trying to revise the contract with somebody that you don't know what an architect is going to recommend for that building. You don't know how much it's gonna cost if you try to do it in certain phases. I think you take on a very large risk by having golfers in a village hall, okay? You usually do not find something like that. I can't think of anywhere. But with that being said, I don't have a
Well,
problem
I'd like
having
to-
a workshop on it.
And that's what I was going to say, yes, I would welcome a workshop, but I also like to make a comment now, since others have the opportunity. I don't know if we took $3.4 million of taxpayer money to be a landlord, or a partial landlord, to lease space off for a retail business in the middle of our day-to-day operations of the village. I don't believe that we paid $3.4 million for this parcel to only cater to a small, specific group of residents in Homer Glen, but for Homer Glen as a whole. That's my thoughts. I would like us to discuss that part as well on the workshop. And how you coordinate retail operations inside of Village Hall,
It's
or
not
a
in the
four-wall
Village Hall.
structure, or
Cameron,
a
could you do
four-wall
me a favor?
structure.
Could you see if you can set this up, as long as the board's accommodating to it, maybe an hour early, started at 6:30 instead of 7:30, so this way we're not taking it throughout the whole night, and we get an opportunity to put all the ducks in a row so everyone understands what we're trying to do here.
Well, that's, the starting meeting of the time is the board's will. That's your guys' decision.
Well,
I don't determine the start times.
if it took 2 hours, we're still not here till midnight trying to
No,
discuss
I'm
this.
just saying that if you're gonna start it,
I think
Well,
we could.
you do have I believe we have the public hearing for the budget, and also the approval of the budget at the next meeting.
All right, but I think that we could get a consensus to whether we're interested in doing what we want to do. So if that's all right with everyone, can we start it at 6:30 next, in 2 weeks?
I have no
fine.
difficulty with it.
Started
Okay.
at 5:30.
do the
We
adjudication,
should actually
but
have it in the
I'll make sure
afternoon.
that, I'll do everything I can to make sure.
For those of us who are
endeavor to have it
retired.
over before then.
Mayor, just so I'm clear,
Yep.
if I could, I need a little bit more direction. I mean, obviously, I'm to invite Mr. Ludwig, which I'll be happy to do. What else do I need? Is it just a discussion amongst the trustees about what you want to do? What is the workshop going to be about? Who's going to lead it?
Well,
what do you need?
I
I mean,
I
I don't want to
preside
show up
over
in
it.
2 weeks and have everybody upset that information that I haven't been asked for yet isn't available. I mean, I need to know what you
should
want,
be-
what you want at the workshop.
I
Go ahead.
can tell you that what it should be is a notice of a special meeting by the President Board of Trustees on that date at 6:30 PM to discuss the disposition of the Woodbine Golf Course, including the possible leasing. So I can work with you on the.
That I don't need help with. I get it, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm talking about the content of it. What do you need?
Nothing.
Besides an invitation to Mr. Ludwig, what would you, anything? you're just gonna be
Invite the
discussing
public.
what
Get
you're.
the-
Get a set of
Financial
floor
impact.
plans for the entire building, because this way at least we have
Right.
something to look at.
Sure,
And-
absolutely.
And Mr. Ludwig, and I think from
I'll
there.
get those out in advance so you can look at them. I know you've all taken a tour, so that'll just help remind you. Yeah, we'll do that.
I have a comment.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Go ahead,
I
Trustee
heard,
Sabo.
Trustee, you could say something about saving money. I'm always for that. I know that there's construction. I've seen it in downtown Chicago where something's being constructed and something is still remaining there. It is possible. And it's interesting that Mr. Ludwig is interested in perhaps staying a little longer than we thought. And we'd like to hear him say that, get that out in the open, and hear some of his ideas. I never like to shut the door until I know what's in the room. And I think we are just investigating at this moment.
Okay, so we'll have a workshop, and it'll start at 6:30. I think, Cam, you should put it on the website that we're having a special meeting.
We'll do what we typically do for special
Right.
meeting. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, is there any other old business?
Yes, Mayor, I do have one other point for
Go
old
ahead,
business.
trustee Suisse.
Because I mentioned this before, I was, like to see what the board feels about getting our board packets earlier in the week, with Wednesday preferably, deadline by Thursday.
I don't think since I've been here, we've ever been able to get them out by
I don't
Wednesday.
know.
It's just
Or a
it's
Thursday,
it's
you know,
impossible to do.
a one-day deadline doesn't, I don't think it makes that big of a difference.
It's impossible to
It is
do.
so busy right now, and things are picking
can't
up,
do it.
and our building permits are picking up, and we've already said we need an additional full-time person.
I'm working every weekend. I cannot do that. I've said it at committee. We've discussed it at committee. I know respectfully, trustee Sweets keeps bringing it up. I understand. I'm trying to be sensitive to the size of the agenda. You saw tonight's. I'm trying to be sensitive that way. I'm trying to spread things out. I'm doing everything I can do. I'm trying to put advanced things in my report 2 weeks in advance before you see them on the board meeting. I'm trying to do everything I can do, but I can't distribute board meetings on Wednesday. I just can't do it.
Well,
I
Give
get
me
it.
another
I'm-
2 people and I can get it done. I can't do it with what I have. I just can't do it.
I understand that.
well, I think it's unfair for the staff too, because they're expected to stay late on a Friday when they want to start their weekend as well. I mean, a Thursday
Every
night for them might be
municipality
better.
has people here late on agenda pack. This is a norm in this industry. This is what happens. And when we hire them, they know it. Heather knows, she prepares for it, she knows she has to be here. I mean, that's just part of her job. Just, you know, it's unfair that I spend 6 hours every Sunday working, but that's what I have to do to keep up. It's just a requirement of our position.
Yeah, I can see at some point in time when we have additional staff to be able to possibly accommodate that wish. But at this point, there's, you know, people doing multiple jobs. We're already saying we need at least one more person to get Elena back to what she's supposed to be doing. You know, at this point in time, I just can't promise that. We'll do the best we can, so. Okay, trustee Sabo, you had something?
Yeah, I did. I just want to talk about communication and policy, and it's something that's happened already, but I think that we should always keep this in mind, and that is that the village board in the past has tabled or established workshops when all information is not presented to them ahead of time. And that we should establish policy to make sure that we do table or we do a workshop in these cases when the information that is pertinent is missing. And I bring this up because of what took place on March 25th. And the manager's memo of October 2013 said that the board was supposed to vote to correct an item pertaining to the 2002 annexation agreement for the hometown square. Now, we didn't vote on it. Maybe there's a reason we didn't vote on it, but I'd like an answer after I finish on this topic as to were we supposed to vote on it, and if we didn't have to, why weren't we told? The mention of the annexation agreement in the manager's memo did not state the condition about the Homer Glen ordinances or Will County ordinances being followed. All we heard was that some things were missing and that we had to find them and so forth. And the trustees were not enlightened about this in the McDonald's plan packet. And some did not know about it before the meeting. The annexation agreement itself was not presented to the village board. Now, also McDonald's attorney presented a chart which the board did not see before the meeting. Now, yes, I was on this board at the time in 2002 when the annexation agreement was made. And part of the people that were incorporating, and there was a reason that was put in. However, information was lost. The village forgot about it. The village, or some of the village people, have changed and they didn't know about it. And so I was quite enlightened shortly before the board meeting about this. And we really should have tabled it and had a discussion on it. So all I'm saying is, in the future, when something like this happens, and it could happen, I'm not blaming anybody, but that we should think about learning more about something rather than voting on it. So, then my question is there a reason that we did not go back to this annexation and that the attorney had said that we should be voting on? And what is it?
Well, I know we talked about this before, and my answer back then is the same as now. Is, you know, the petitioner had the right to go through the process if the petitioner decided to do it. And Bob wanted to go through the process, and therefore he went through the process. I mean, even the annexation agreement says that. It says, you know, they can make a choice. And he wanted to go through the normal process of the Plan Commission and the Village Board, and that's what he did.
Well, manager, I'm not asking that question. I know that happened. I'm talking about the lack of information that it was not presented
I already
to the board.
apologized.
You
I already
assumed,
apologized for it once.
oh, please don't interrupt
Well,
me. You assumed that we knew about it, okay? I know that the village didn't know about this because there's been properties that have followed the Homer Glen ordinances without knowing that they had a choice. All I'm saying is in the future, we should be more careful, that we should have a workshop or we should table it so that we know everything. But my question is, the attorney had said that we were supposed to vote on something relating to the annexation agreement. This came out in your memo in October.
I'd have to look back at it. I don't
And
recall.
maybe the attorney remembers, and it was something that was missing or something that had to be corrected.
It was previous attorney.
And
It was
so
probably Carrie. It wasn't Mark.
Was not me.
it was Carrie then. All right.
And I can't recall.
Okay, well, evidently, it wasn't, evidently. it
Margaret,
wasn't
so we
necessary.
can cut this to the quick here.
Well, I did cut it to the quick.
Anytime you think that you don't have the proper information, you can always make a motion to table.
Absolutely.
That is your prerogative. So
Absolutely,
that-
and we've done that in the past. That's my point here.
Okay, well,
Is not that we don't
We get
have
it.
the choice. My point here is to remember that we do have a choice.
Thank you.
And that we don't always have to rush to vote.
thank you. Okay, is there any other old business? How about
Yes.
any new, what?
Yes.
Oh, go right ahead.
Okay, I know that we haven't finished with the liquor ordinance, the minutes, and I'm still looking at it. And had asked Attorney Stark for a red line copy that started with the March 19th red line version, so we know it's been taken out, because sometimes we reflect back on that and maybe want to put something back in. But the subject at the meeting of March 25th, Dottie's came up. And the Dottie's was agreed to the A license. And they wanted to have a vote because they wanted to be on the list early enough. Anyone can understand that. And at that meeting, they knew that we had not done any amendments yet, but we were going to amend the liquor license. And that they said that they would comply with the A license. Didn't even know what was in it, but would comply with it. And so at this time, looking back in the minutes, I even talked about the kitchen requirements. I know that Trustee Yukich, or it could have been Trustee Costa, that talked about the square footage and what it would be. But they were anxious to get a license. They agreed to whatever it was. So an A license means that it's 1,500 square feet, and they don't have it. So I would like to have a discussion on this. They are not grandfathered in. It didn't say that in the minutes.
Go ahead, Trustee Costa.
Mayor, if I could, because I know when we had this discussion 2 meetings ago, I looked up in my records, and I have the letter here that was given to us, I believe, from the attorneys within 2 days, actually October 9th. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just one paragraph. As noted, Dottie's was granted a Class A license with requirements that both liquor and food be served. We understand the village will amend its Class F liquor license classification to require food, at which time Dottie's would surrender its A liquor license for a Class F license. So my question is we didn't do anything to the Class F license. So technically, are we obligated to give them a Class F license?
That would be the village attorney.
No.
Or are they grandfathered in under the original A because we didn't fulfill the requirement of changing the F?
They have an A license.
Correct.
Okay, it was the recommendation of the subcommittee consisting of trustees Kajianis and Yukich that the village keep but one F license and that no future F licenses be issued. So the A license with, what's the name of the establishment, Dottie's?
Dottie's.
Okay. The Dottie's is still subject to the A license. The conditions for an A license have changed. Now require an A license to have a certain square footage and to serve food from a kitchen as defined in the ordinance. Whether the board elects to enforce those provisions of the ordinance against Dottie's right now is for the board to decide. Just as it's for the board to decide whether the establishment is grandfathered.
Okay.
Okay.
Having said that, they're opening next week, right? They got their state license, they've had their village liquor license, they got their state license. They're scheduled to open next week. The project has been done. As I talked about with the attorney, they got an occupancy permit because they finished their project as it was approved through the building code. So, I mean, I understand that you keep talking about it, but I keep respectfully just telling you now, this is like the third meeting in a row. They're moving towards opening, and I think they're opening next week or maybe tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah,
And-
so I brought it up a couple meetings because I wanted you to be completely informed about it.
Okay.
Go
I mean,
go ahead.
All right. Cam, where I have an issue with that, and I went back and I watched the video from October 8th, and you specifically said, we have enough time to get all this stuff put into place so we can give them the corrected license way before they open up the door. We didn't do it.
Well, we did-
But
we-
wait.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
What I'm trying to say is, we kept asking, let's get the liquor ordinance, let's get the liquor ordinance, let's get the liquor ordinance, and it got postponed until we pushed a little bit more, and that's when the mayor stepped up to the plate and said, here, let's do a committee and let's get it done. The problem that we had by then is 5 months or 6 months had gone by, and they had already done a build-out. We were supposed to have all this stuff done for them way before they did the build-out, because the guy stood right there and said, I don't care, whatever I have to do, I will do. I need the license. So now we're being told that, and this comes to where we don't have enough information in front of us. That's why I kind of agree with what Margaret said. We need everything in front of us so we can make an educated response to what these people are looking for, not a guesstimate to say, well, you know what? Because I remember specifically saying, you understand that an A license, we don't even know it's going to be in an A license right now because we are reworking the ordinance. And he agreed. Because we didn't know what was going to be in there, not until Trustee Kajanius and I got a chance to sit down, which was really, like I said, about 5 or 6 months afterward. So we are putting a lot of things through with not knowing, and the same thing with the gambling license. We're not doing our due diligence. We're not finding out all the problems that we're having. And unfortunately, everyone in the state right now they're in the same boat we are.
Well, let me just address that. As Trustee Costa just read to you, the F license, you wanted to add food to. It was beer and wine, as I recall. And we didn't want to have an F license. And we said to move you forward and what have you, we'll issue an A license because they were going to offer food anyway. We gave them an A license, okay? Then at a later date, you changed it. The purpose of giving them that A license was so that they could move forward, they could do their build-out, they could apply to the state, and they did it.
That's not what happened.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly.
That's not even close to
That's
what happened.
exactly what happened.
We never gave them the authority. Mayor, if you remember correctly, and if you need, I'll pull up October 8th meeting, and you said we will change it over to an F license, is what you said.
Yeah, we're gonna amend the F license to add food, and we're gonna give you an A license temporarily, and then you'll get an F license. Well, you guys eliminated the F license.
Well, we didn't eliminate it. We're just not making any more. But see, that's why. Here, in a situation like that, stop and think about it. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you didn't have the right to tell them that we were changing it to an F.
You
because-
voted on it.
No,
No,
there
we didn't. I
was
voted on
no
an A. I said, they're, an A license is what you want.
Wait.
The question is not what happened before, the question is what does the board, what are the
Right.
board's desires?
And that's what we need to
at this point?
discuss.
Okay, and I think what has happened is that we have been put in a very uncomfortable position because, under the circumstances, they were going to get an A license and meet the requirements for an A license. Somebody had an idea that it could be changed to an F, but the restrictions or the definition of an A license would stand. So it doesn't matter what the letter is. The A license requires so many. We did not vote on this. We did not expect that they would be allowed to have a building permit. When I found out about that, that wasn't what the board wanted. Why would they be given a building permit when they didn't even know, and we didn't even know, what an A was supposed to be?
You
And
gave
that-
them an A license.
Excuse me, but you are, point of order, you have interrupted me.
No, I'm going to state the fact. You issued them a F license.
No, I did
I
not.
take that back. They applied for an F license. George did not want an F license because it just was beer and wine. We said we would issue them an A license, and when the F license was amended to add food to it, we would move them back to the proper license. That's exactly the way it went. We issued them a permit. They went and put their build out in the building department. They built it out, and they're opening up, and that's the way it went down.
They agreed to whatever the A license was. It doesn't make any difference what the letter is, but the A license requires a certain amount of square footage. They didn't care. They wanted to get on the list. Now, they have been put in a bind because they were allowed to have a building permit, which they should not have been given.
You're
And-
absolutely wrong.
No, I'm not wrong.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm not wrong
Hold
because
on,
Point
Trustee
of order, let her
Janice.
just finish with what she's saying.
Go ahead.
I am not wrong because there was no vote on this. We can look in the minutes and say that. I am not preventing, if somebody's going to say that, I'm not preventing a business from coming into town, but I don't think that we finished that conversation. And I think that what happened is somebody jumped the gun and said to the building department, go ahead, give them a building permit. They weren't ready for it because we knew we were going to change the square footage.
Trustee Costa, go ahead.
I do remember that conversation that night, and if we all remember, I believe I'm the one that started the whole thing with the,
Yes.
I would not support an F license, but I would support an A, with the understanding they would take an F when we redid it. If anybody is guilty of a building permit being given, it's the six of us sitting here because we did not give direction to staff not to give one.
Good.
I honestly believe that. Now, again, go back to a meeting before that, who's the one that tabled it, and there was a lot of heat. I really had issue with, I don't want to say Dottie's, but the business like that. We gave the attorney time to get us some information. We discussed it, I believe, on October 8th or October 9th. We came to that decision. In my estimation right now, as our legal counsel said, we need to move forward on this issue, and we're either going to grandfather them in because, again, in good conscience, and, they did meet the A license requirements that were written prior to 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Correct.
So they built out and everything was right. So we changed the A license since then.
Correct.
Well, may I
I feel that it
answer?
may have to be grandfathered in. That's my personal feeling. I don't know what everybody else feels. Again, we had 2 or 3, if you want to say errors or omissions that we should have probably instituted that we didn't. I don't feel that we should have any business have to deal with now a change in our policy when they were days away from opening a business. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank
No,
you, Mike.
and actually,
Trustee
I want to withdraw,
Kajanis.
because actually what Mike said was very succinct and pragmatic, and I agree. There's comments about the square footage, but that's after the fact. That's as of 2 weeks ago. But at the time that we did vote on Dottie's, Square footage was not one in the ordinance, nor was it discussed nor ratified as an amendment to our ordinance prior to us voting. So it's almost like asking them to go golfing at night. Pardon the pun, you know, you can't ask a person to go and spend the money. We award them a license, they go do their job, they build out, take the permits out, and now we're saying, yeah, thanks for spending all the money. We changed our mind. We don't want you. I don't think we could do that as a board.
Okay,
Personally.
I would entertain a motion to grandfather Dottie's in and just be done with it. I believe.
We can't do that tonight. We don't have it on the agenda.
Not on the agenda.
So we can't do it?
No.
Are they?
And I don't think that it doesn't
I think
require
it's
it.
necessary, yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is just, it's the end of it.
Okay. Good enough. Is there any other new business?
Well, no,
Well,
but
wait a minute.
but
We
the
haven't
only thing that I would like
finished
to say on this is this, and I hope this whole board realizes, this is a learning experience. Shit's getting crammed down our throats way too fast. We're making mistakes, and we shouldn't be making mistakes. Ted, if you got something to say, go ahead and say it. 'Cause,
No,
I mean, you roll your eyes.
I don't hold back, and you know me well enough, George. I won't hold back, and I'm going, okay. You know, you think we made mistakes. You think we're moving too fast.
We are.
Okay, well, that's your opinion. I can't change your opinion on that, nor will I try.
I
Okay.
want to make a comment.
Go ahead, Trustee
And address Trustee Costa and address Trustee Kajanis. They did not agree to come in on an A license under that current ordinance. They agreed to come in under the A license, under the ordinance that was going to be proposed. They didn't know what it was. And as far
They
as,
just said it. They didn't know what it was.
I think that the board has been placed in a bad position because they were given a building
Okay.
permit. And Trustee Costa said that this board did not give staff to go ahead, did not say staff couldn't go ahead. This board didn't say staff could go ahead. I think staff should have asked this board what to do under these peculiar circumstances.
Well, I disagree. When a permit's
Well-
issued, somebody goes in with a build-out, lay out a set of plans to the building department. If they pass that, the fire code and everything else, you don't come back to the board
But the
for that.
circumstances
That's
were
why we have a
diff-
building department.
The
Listen,
circumstances
okay,
were different
We've had
this
enough
time.
discussion. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
No, we have to, well, this isn't, we can't leave this open-ended.
They've got.
It's done.
We gotta-
They're
It's
gonna-
over with. It's over
You
with.
know, and I don't get that we had to give permission to staff. You know, what if it was a 7-Eleven or a bookstore or some other type of business, and we issued them the right to variance? Is staff going to sit around for months until we say, yes, we give you permission, and now give them a permit to start build-out?
No, it doesn't. It never has worked that way.
Let's,
Okay, let's just have,
Yeah.
there's a
We don't do this.
I'm asking for a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
First by trustee DeVivo, second by trustee Yukich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, say nay. Meeting adjourned.